Hello friends. So it's purely out of early hours of the morning curiosity that I decided to start looking up a couple of books that I read when I was younger. One of these books is called Child Possessed, and it tells the real life story apparently, of a girl called Mary Roth and a girl who is called Mary Loransi Venom, but she's just known as Loransi Venom. Now, I know that Wikipedia is not known to be the most accurate of things because it's written by people like me. It's written by your basic everyday person. But the information that I found out about Loransi Venom is as follows. Mary Loransi Venom was born in 1864 near Watseka in Illinois. In the summer of 1877 she suffered a series of epileptic fits, often lapsing into unconsciousness. After awakening, she told her family that she had been to heaven, had seen angels, and had visited her younger brother and sister who had died before her. As Venom's fits became more frequent, physicians advised there was nothing more they could do, and by January 1878 it was decided she should be placed in an insane asylum. A neighbour and devout spiritualist, Asa B. Roth, convinced Venom's parents not to commit her and instead to call in a physician who was himself a spiritualist, E. Winchester Stevens. In 1878, physician and spiritist E. Winchester Stevens examined Venom. Stevens' accounts were published in the leading spiritist journal of the time, the Religio Philosophical Journal, and later in an 1887 book titled The Watseka Wonder, which he described Venom as the most remarkable case of spirit return and manifestation ever recorded in history. According to Stevens, Venom's character would change suddenly from morose and sullen to mystic and imaginary trances in which she described joyous trips to heaven and visits with angels. According to Stevens, Venom often spoke in different voices and became several different people, including a nobleman named Katrina Hogan and a young man named Willie Canning. Stevens claimed she remembered the names of several people who had died and had possessed her body, and later chose to be possessed by the soul of Asa Roth's deceased daughter, Mary Roth. Psychical researcher Richard Hodgson of the American Society of Psychical Research was also convinced that Venom was possessed by Roth's spirit. William James briefly mentioned the case in his book The Principles of Psychology in 1890. James commented that it's perhaps as extreme a case of possession of the modern sort as one can find. According to Stevens and Hodgson, Venom allowed Mary Roth to possess her body for about 15 weeks, during which time she could allegedly recognize all Roth's friends and relatives, was familiar with all of the objects in the Roth home, and we could retell incidents and stories from Roth's childhood and her past life. Convinced that Venom was a reincarnation of their daughter, the Roth family allowed the girl to live with them for several weeks. Stevens wrote that when Venom later married, Roth's spirit supposedly inhabited Venom, resulting in a painless childbirth for her. There are people that criticise this though. Upon reviewing the case, psychologist Frank Sargent Hoffman regarded Venom as a typical case of hysterical impersonation and wrote that there is no evidence Venom had knowledge she could not have obtained by normal means. Hoffman wrote that the grieving Roth family did everything in their power to encourage Venom that she was their Mary. Journalist Henry Addington Bruce categorized Venom as unduly suggestible, saying that it may safely be declared that the phenomena manifested through Loransi Venom were not a whit more otherworldly than the phenomenon produced by tricksters whom Hodgson himself so skillfully and mercifully exposed. Bruce wrote that recurrences of the Mary personality appeared only when the Roths paid her visits, and that they seized entirely upon her marriage to a man not interested in Spiritism and her removal to a distant part of the country. So that's it, that information. There have been some adaptations. 1949 radio program, a very obscure one, Out of the Night, dramatised the case as the girl with the dual personality. There was a play, Before I Wake, produced and staged in 1986, and there was a 2009 film, The Possessed. It has been aired on television on June the 10th, 2012. And that's pretty much that. I'll have a picture of the book in like for this video, as opposed to my video. You'll just get my audio as usual. The other book that I actually when I find it, see, there's a bunch of different books with this title, Life Before Life, and a lot of these are claiming to be by a guy called Jim B. Tucker, but that's not the name of the person that wrote the book that I read. The name of the author of the book that I read is Helen Wambach, and see if I can find any information other than the book. Right, let me see. This says that Life Before Life was a scientific investigation of children's memories of previous lives. But that's not the book that I was looking for. I don't know why it keeps. Right. No, we don't want to watch it. Right, let's see what this says. Dr. Helen Wambach, PhD, was one of the earliest scientific researchers into past lives and reincarnation. She was the author of Reliving Past Lives and Life Before Life, both published in 1978. The updated Reliving Past Lives, The Evidence Under Hypnosis, was published in 1984. Initially motivated by a desire to debunk reincarnation, beginning in the mid-1960s, Helen Wambach conducted a 10-year survey of past life recalls under hypnosis among 1,088 subjects. She asked very specific questions about time periods in which people lived and the clothing, footwear, utensils, money, housing, etc., which they used or came in contact with. Wambach concluded found people's recollection to be amazingly accurate and wrote that fantasy and genetic memory could not account for the patterns that emerged in the results. With the exception of 11 subjects, all descriptions, clothing, footwear and utensils were consistent with historical records. So, I know I'm not reading out an awful lot of information here in regards to her, but you can look up the book. Obviously, I'm going to have a picture of the book in place of the video section of this vlog, and you'll be able to look up the books and see if they're still being published or whatever. But the books are called Child Possessed, or A Child Possessed I think it is, on Life Before Life. and they are, when I just get my gallery up, Child Possessed is a chilling story of possession and exorcism by David St. Clair. That's David St. Clair. And then you've got Life Before Life by Helen Wambach, or Wambach, however you pronounce it. But I found both these books to be very interesting books, and yeah, I just wanted to share this with people, and a bit of a history about Loransi Venom and her possession by Mary Roth, and that there's a book about Tim that might be leading to something for me in regards to people remembering what it was like in the womb. If you've ever read the Life Before Life book, the one by Helen Wambach, people can recount, from what I recall, in periods of time that they were in the womb before they were born. So it's not just a case of talking about, oh, I used to be a Victorian woman and now I'm a modern man or something. It talks about time that they were in the womb as well, which is why I find that book and the Child Possessed book to be two of the most interesting books. No, this video isn't on Magic Reviews, it's on Buzzy and Flowers, because I wanted to show that I can do like kind of review things for books that I haven't currently got. I'm going to reread a book at some point that I read years ago, that I do have, that I haven't accidentally got chucked away, that's in my storage cupboard. I do apologise for the fact I haven't turned the sound off on my phone and you can hear all the notifications. I normally do turn the sound off, but I haven't tonight. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you don't mind me doing this review on this channel, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.